Hey y'all, it's Friendly Neighborhood Therapist Friday, and it is Auntie Ashley here for the TCC Pride Week wrap up. And I wanted to make sure that we centered the voices that needed to be centered for Pride Month for this week at TCC. And I specifically wanted to make sure that we heard from all intersections because, people have an idea of what LGBTQ is, and oftentimes certain people still get left out. So I wanted to make sure we centered every voice that we possibly could. With that, I'm going to introduce my guest to y'all here. This is Seth. And Seth, first and foremost, thank you so much for doing this with me and for doing this for the Clinical Cookout. We truly appreciate it. First question, let the people know how you identify so that they can get it right.
Okay, sounds perfect. One, I want to say thank you for inviting me. My name is Seth Ahmad. I identify as transgender, trans male, and my pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a campus pastor at Virginia State University, where I work currently to pastor. I pastor all kids from all walks of life with a specialization in LGBTQIA plus students. My journey as a trans male has been one. It's had good days, it's had bad days. Some of the bad days have been is trying to one live your truth in a space where sometimes it's not always necessarily accepted, but living it anyway. Being transgender for me, it just didn't start when I got to be an adult. It started probably like when I was 7. I just knew that I didn't identify with the gender that was given to me at birth. But I grew up in a space and in church where it said like this was wrong. I'll be honest, for years I thought I was wrong until I started going to seminary. Never forget my first week at seminary, I had a professor who broke bread, took communion that I think that Friday. And when she broke bread, her words in breaking this bread was, "This is the body of Christ that is broken for everybody." It does not exist to exclude people. It exists to include everyone. And it stuck with me. Her name was Dr. Jill Crenshaw. I'll never forget it. And that was my journey beginning to be trans and transgender and figuring out like, hey, this is who I like, this is what I like. Also leaving the narrative that God did not love me and that I was an abomination. And so as I began to sort of fully live into my truth, I ended up like coming out. And coming out, it always wasn't the easiest because you have people who come from different walks of life and they believe like they believe. And one of the things that I tell people all the time, and one of the things that helped me in this whole like transition, is to know that you have more people for you than there are people that are against you. As a trans person and as a trans man who's African American, it can be difficult to identify within the space of a nuclear family, of a family that is very like heterosexual. It can be difficult, and it has been because you know I believe that sometimes in certain situations, the people that we love, they have expectations of us, and they have things that they want us to be. And what helps me along in this moment is that I would rather live in my truth than die being fake. And so for me, it's one of those things as a trans male that I live in my truth, but living in my truth also comes with helping others live into theirs because on any given day when I'm working, I see over 70 to 80 students.
Mhm.
And when I see them, a lot of times if they're a part of the LGBTQI A plus community, we
Mhm.
spend hours upon hours in a semester talking and maneuvering through the hardest times. And I'm only as good to them as I am to myself.
Ooh, that's a word right there. I think that's a
Yeah,
word for therapists,
yeah.
for pastors. You can only be as good to your people as you are to yourself.
Make God to be so difficult and God so exclusive when actuality the three things that we are to do is to love God, love neighbor as we love ourselves.
That's what I always go back to. That's what I always.
Period. I had to learn to in order for me to help them, I had to learn to love who I looked at every day.
Yes. Yes. And see, that's one of the main reasons why I'm glad I was able to get you for this interview because, of course, I knew what your work was in. So,
Mm,
aside from just being a trans male, your work being in the spiritual realm is like a
mm,
big deal because now you sit at so many intersections. You are Black, first and foremost, in
yeah,
this world. That's what we see first. We're going
yeah,
to know you Black. Then you are a trans male. Then you are in the ministry. Like these are intersections that don't ever seem to mix well for
yeah.
people.
And if I could tell you the one book that changed my life, and I realized that spirituality and sexuality met at the intersections and at the margins, it was by Kelly Douglas, I believe her name is, and it's called The Black Church of Sexuality. It was it radicalized my view of sexuality, it radicalized my view of heteronormativity,
Mhm.
and it just radicalized a lot. And not only that, but the beauty in it all is seeing other people set free too. Because as a pastor and as a trans pastor, sometimes we can live in the shadows and of the darkness of things and stay there. And you have to come to the realization one day that the darkness was never where you were supposed to be. Yeah.
That's good.
And so, we like to say Jesus is the light of the world, but well, Jesus being the light of the world and we follow him as we say that we love to follow, then that means we are a light into the most dimmest places. And that's been that beauty in it, is being a light to others, being a light to myself first, but being a light to others, saying, listen, you don't gotta live in the shadows. It ain't gonna be easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but when that light bulb clicks, it clicks and
Listen,
you live fully into who you are. So
listen.
yeah.
One thing I'm big on telling myself is hatred causes shadow, love brings light. And I don't think people realize that
Mhm,
tolerance and all these other sugar coated words we can say,
mhm,
if you can't fully embrace somebody, that's the opposite of love. Like I
mhm,
understand correction, I understand a lot of different things that the Christian faith holds true, but at
mhm,
the end of the day, it's either bondage or freedom. And it's not a matter of because some people will say, you don't get to just do whatever it is you want to do. But this is not that. This is not doing
mhm.
whatever it is you want to do. This is being who you are. That's not the same as doing what you want to do. Because when you say you're doing what you want to do, now you're saying I have a choice in this matter. And I always ask people, did you have a choice in who you are? Did you have a choice? Did you make
Nah,
a definitive choice at some point that you were going to be cisgender and heterosexual? Or is that just who you are?
I spent a lot of years of my life trying to please people and fit heteronormative ideologies
Mhm.
until it really hit me that no, you're really killing yourself. So when I began to live in my truth, that's when I started looking at, hey, I got more people with me than I have against me. When you live in your truth, the thing that people can say, aha, I got you on, when you living in it, they can't even hold that against you. And
Mhm.
so that was a turning point for me, because I said, you know what? I'm not gonna sit here and being in ministry as I am now because I'm a campus pastor. I'm not about to sit here and live a lie, but preach a gospel that preaches radical inclusion and freedom. And
Ooh.
one of the things that I've learned, Ashley, is this big thing. My grandmother said this to me. She said, if I have to preach a gospel that condemns you to hell, does the gospel have the power we talk about it having? And with me, it really dawned on me, like when I came out as trans,
Mhm.
that this gospel of radical inclusion I preach about, the gospel that I tell and I teach to students, you literally become in some way, shape, or form a living epistle. And a living epistle in the sense that you can be transparent with boundaries. Let me say that.
Mhm.
But you end up where you find yourself saying, you know what? Either I'm gonna live a lie and die in that, or I'm gonna live in my truth and live fully into it. And I just refuse to live that. And the interesting thing about it is, when I started to do that again, I started to see the ways that people were there for me versus those who were not. And one of the main people, and it's definitely a big shout out, is to my life partner. Period. Me and her, like, we have one of the things that she always before we leave each other in the morning, and I get her down, do whatever I'm doing with her, is I tell her all the time, I love you and I thank you that you're a part of my life. And so it is then when I begin to live in my truth that I begin to be able to form and communicate a family dynamic that helped me stay authentic to who I was and who I am. And so living your truth, I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna cost you some things. But what it's not gonna cost you is your life. People that are not there, thank you for everything you did for me. I have no hard feelings, but I'm over here living my life like it's golden.
Okay.
And
Okay
so
then.
and not only that, like the people that have surrounded me in Unfit Christian, people who surrounded me in Holy Smokes and other places, I've learned as a trans person how to create family, and it's not does not mean that they're always blood. Does
That is
not mean that they always share the same DNA. Because when I do meet people, they was like, well, this is what I heard. And this is how people have presented the gospel, or people have presented who I am. And I've been saying it throughout this whole Pride Month. I ain't never seen so many people who worry about what grown folk doing with their own bodies.
Lord. And you know what? They place that worry into the realm of
Mm-hmm.
just trying to save you, or I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
help you, or correct you. And it's like, no, you are way too worried about what I'm doing in a private part of my life. That is a private part of my life. So
Mm-hmm.
that really has nothing to do with you.
When it comes to that, and when it comes to being trans, and you start telling people the truth, listen, you you live in that truth, and people gonna throw stones at you, but it's something about when people throw stones and then they stones get unturned, and you just be like,
Oh, baby, that's a whole nother
that's
pause.
all other word. But yeah, I
Whole nother
appreciate it.
segment. That's a whole
Yeah,
nother segment. Take the plank out of your own eye first, because if we want to sit here and say things about people, we have to be able to look in the mirror.
exactly, and make sure your skeletons don't got flesh on
Ooh, okay. Now
them.
listen.
So,
I am I am
I love it.
so happy that you were able to do this with me today.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much.
Listen, you already know, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you for even having me. One of the things I learned is people don't have to be nice to you, so when they are, you say thank you. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Listen, you ain't got to tell me, because you have been there for me. Y'all don't
Amen.
know. Seth has been a support to me, y'all. So people will come into your life, and this is why I say be careful who you look at and try to judge, or who you look at and try to condemn, because those are some of the best people walking the earth that will bring light into your life. Seth has been a support to me in a lot of ways. And even with this today, me reaching out and, asking you if you want to do this, and you like immediately, yes, like this is what support looks like. This is what community looks like. This is what love looks like, y'all. And I said, lead people with something. What's your parting
Um,
words for people?
parting words is living your truth, be great, and remember that when the body of Jesus was broken for you, it was broken for you in every part, not just for who people think you are, but for who you are. And don't ever live in the shadows of darkness, because love is light and you're the light.